Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. On this episode, we're talking to a new friend of ours, James McGuinness.
So James is the founder of PondLeap, which is a startup here in Chicago and also a member at Workbox like us. And essentially what they allow entrepreneurs and people from overseas that are looking to break into a new market, instead of spending all of your money on one salesperson, you're able to split that amount of money for strategy and then also being able to hire a whole bunch of freelancers that they help train.
Yeah, this conversation kind of centered around entrepreneur and CEO struggles. You know, it's one of those things where you think you put on that CEO hat and you have to know everything about everything. And honestly, it's okay not to know, and it's okay to ask, and it's okay to look for support.
It's absolutely invaluable, the amount of information that you can get from other founders and building a community of people that you can trust like that. So it's a great conversation. You can watch this episode on YouTube, and if you're watching it, it's coming right up. But enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
Was we got one of those inflatable pools, and we filled it up in the summer. And my daughter was like 3 times a week, let's go swimming. And I'm like, cool. And I feel like we could have done that yesterday. That's how crazy it was. And then a tornado basically hit Chicago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we almost lost the covering. I think we might have saved the covering on top of the grill yesterday. We looked at it and it was blowing off. And underneath, there's just one little thing that clips, just one.
Yeah,
not on both sides.
Just on one
just
side.
on one side. And so we clipped that together, and it's off completely. And it looks like the clip gave out, too. So it probably would have been... We're like, it's going to turn into a parasail. It's just going right through the backyard and crash into people's houses. You know, it's got wheels.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So, we're in conversation with James McGuinness. James, we usually start off with you giving us a little information about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, thank you, Frank and Jack, for inviting me on here today. Like, absolutely honored to be here. Obviously, I'm not originally from Chicago or America. I'm from a little lone island called England. My background was I left college. I did a financial services degree because I thought, like, well, I'm going to be in banking and insurance. That's going to get me money. I left college, got rejected from numerous places, and landed in sales in 2004. And my career has really since been in sales, being a sales leader, being in sales training, sales strategy. And to answer your question on what I do, I've taken my years of experience, the bad parts and the learnings from it, and put it into a company called PondLeap, which what we do is we help international companies expand into America through sales. And I know from firsthand experience, it's hard to deal with that and hard to get into a new country. So we take that on for them. And then we also help startup companies to really start with selling and to mitigate risk for with what they're doing in their sales strategy and their sales process. We take that on. And so we're almost like a blender of if you put in like the gig economy, if you put in sales recruitment, sales consulting companies, and then you hit the go button, that's what PondLeap is, and by default, I'm the captain of that ship is probably the best way of describing it.
I love how, you know what, and I had the toughest time deciding what my title was going to be, too, because it's like, as a founder, you basically do everything, and it's like, well, does that mean, like, we the guy who's helping us develop our app, we're both in Workbox together, which is the reason why we were put together. Thank you to Kelly Pease for making us talk to each other outside of any of the other networking things that we do. But it's so tough because the guy, like the app guy that we talked to, he's a founder, he's a CEO of his company, but he calls himself lead programmer because that's what he spends most of his time doing. Right. And he doesn't want to seem too pompous and call himself the CEO. It's not like because CEO has this kind of connotation of being an elite or like you're running, $500 million a day kind of a company.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like you have to talk to a board if you're the CEO. But like, I mean, I guess if you're a founder, you might not have the board. Like, oh, I can't get this approved unless I talk to the board.
Right. Even though
It's so funny because like throughout my career, when I started my career and I was in my 20s, I was like, I really want to be a VP. No, I really want to get to that level. And I've always had like, maybe I want to run my own business. And as I got older, I'm like, you can call me whatever you want. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about time. And now to your point, like, you're 100% right. Like, you could literally call me 50 different things right now. And ironically, when I launched PondLeap and I put down that I was CEO, my old CEO was like, oh, like, and by the way, he's ran 4 businesses and exited 4 businesses. He was like, oh, so welcome to the CEO club then. And I was like, man, like, damn, like, way to put me down there.
Yeah, right. Anybody can give themselves that title.
Well, right, even.
But you know what, James? You can fulfill your lifelong dream of being a VP. You literally can call yourself vice president at PondLeap.
Yeah, right.
And who's going to contradict you?
Vice president.
Right.
Yeah, right. And then everyone asks, who's the CEO of PondLeap? It's like, only I know.
Right.
I'm the VP of everything.
I'm the VP. I'm the VP of the CEO.
Well, what's also funny is that we launched PondLeap. So the background is my wife has been in sales. I've been in sales for 15 years. I focus more on startups with a sprinkling of IBM and LinkedIn. My wife, I met her at IBM, and she was one of the first 1,000 people at LinkedIn. So she's mainly done enterprise. When I pitched PondLeap to her for years, I was like, this is my idea. And she's like, no, like, pitch it. No. 2020 is like, pitched it. Yes. Okay. But I'm in. Like, she's coming in. She's coming out of like sales retirement because she's been a stay-at-home mum for a bit. But what's funny is she's the CEO of this household. Everyone that knows us knows that she's in charge of the house. Like, if I want to put a picture up on the wall, like, that doesn't go up without Jamie's approval. So really, she's like the CEO of the company, like, for all intents and purposes.
So you are the VP. You got your wish.
That's my point. I basically am the VP.
You come to her with this idea, and it's like, okay, great, you're the VP.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm in charge now.
Yeah, I'm the captain now. Like,
that's hilarious. But yeah, so it's an interesting idea on your part for PondLeap, and then we could talk about the name PondLeap too, because I love both. Jack, I was telling this to Kelly because I got to meet her for the first time yesterday, in person, not like via.
Oh, really?
Zoom.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got to go down there, and I was like, Jack and I both had the same reaction when we found out why it was called PondLeap. Because I watched Jack's face, dude, and I did the same thing that I did. I was like, oh, PondLeap, because England's across the pond. And once again, England, you keep saying this is a small little island. I've never heard of it.
No.
Are you sure you're not referencing the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, right.
Or
Cayman
something
Islands?
like that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I said this to you, like when people first used to come, when I first used to meet people in Chicago, they're like, oh, where are you from? Like South Africa, Australia? And I was like, London, Kentucky. And I just love the reaction.
Right.
But the idea with PondLeap was, it wasn't a complicated problem, but it was a problem that I dealt with. There are thousands of companies that are actually outside of America that really want to come into America. They like America. They've got opportunity here, but they don't know how to do it. And not only had I had that problem in my career, I've also now experienced it being over here as well. And so, like, sometimes the simplest solutions, like, I used to write down ideas for businesses and like, oh, this is a good idea. And this is why Jamie always said no, because it was like, oh, this is way too complicated. Or this is way too. And sometimes the simplest solution is like the easiest one.
Yeah.
And I bought the domain for PondLeap 5 years ago, kind of hoping that this would one day materialize. So
yeah,
I'm glad you like the name.
Yeah, no, it's so important to get that
the right
domain,
name,
yeah,
and the right
and
name.
buy that on whatever GoDaddy or something like that and have it. Because with our company Clovis Point, Jack and Dad, they had looked up clovispoint.com and it was available.
Yeah,
and then they were like, and I wasn't there for whatever reason,
and so we had to get board approval from our CEO.
So they didn't buy it, right? They didn't buy it, but they looked it up. And then when we went back, it was already taken because there are sharks that look up. Yeah.
It was like $3,000 to buy it.
There are companies out there that's all they do is I don't know how they get the information from GoDaddy, but they're like, all right, who looked up this name? I'm going to go and buy it because obviously there's interest. You look it up, you buy it. A little advice for any entrepreneur out there that has a great name idea. Look it up and buy it. We own Neighborhoods, and we own Quid Quo, and we own Just Kill Me series. What's something we just... Oh, it's Stipulations, our cocktail. Stipulations.com. We own Stipulations.com. You know
really?
why? Yeah, because it's like nobody in their right mind would have ever come up with that Portamahue, whatever, that combination of two words. And the instant that you put it in there, you know that somebody's going to be like, wow, that's actually kind of clever. Let's go ahead and take that. And then when they're looking for it, like Clovis Point, you type in clovispoint.com and it goes to like some Montana development complex, right? So like somebody out there decided that it's like, oh, Clovis Point, Montana, you know, and they bought it for however much.
But it's just a direct, it's
a direct link. It's not its own website.
It just goes straight there. If you
it just goes straight there, and it changes the URL in the search box.
I'd actually be curious on your point here, because both of you are into the brand and the marketing side of things. But I think like a name is really important. But when the internet started out, and I was telling my niece the other day that I'm older than Google, and she was like, "No way!" Like I'm like, "Yeah, I'm like I was around before Google. I was around in the days of Ask Jeeves." But I do. But in the old days, and you're going back to the buying of like domains, like it was always .com, like is America, and then .co.uk was UK, .co.nz was New Zealand, like .co.eu was Europe, right? And you knew which country the website was from. I personally, I'm seeing more and more unique like dots at the end now, and I'm not sure. Like, there's part of me that's like, "Wow, okay, that's a really clever way of doing a website," and there's part of me that's like, I don't know why are you doing IO? Like, and I'm curious your thoughts on like the branding. Like, does it impact if it's not .com, or does it impact if it's certain ends now?
I think it really helps out if you accidentally come up with a name that somebody else already has. And like the IO is usually technology based, right? Like we have Quidquo, we have Quidquo.app, right? Because it's eventually going to be an app. So in my mind, that made sense. Quidquo.com had already been taken and it cost like $5 billion to buy or something, right? So Quidquo.app, I was like, that makes sense. I understand because it's going to be an app.
Like,
so
there was a moment where it was kind of like a .co or a .iu or a .tx or whatever the hell the dot was after that made it seem a little less legitimate. But now, like, big companies have a .co too, so it's just like it doesn't really matter anymore as long as it gets you to that site and
it's the right people.
And half the time you don't even type in the website anymore. You kind of just click on a link anyway. So
right. That's true too. And if you're looking up and you put enough keywords into Google, you should be able to find it. Up, so. But in America, like .gov, you can't get a .gov like that. You just can't do it unless it's the United States government. You can't get a .gov. But like .org at one point was supposed to be only for organizations, and now everybody has You can do. I can buy a .org right now. We can call it In Conversation Podcast.org.
Yeah, right.
And it could look like a nonprofit. We're not a nonprofit.
Make it seem more legitimate.
Maybe, but it's like that. Yeah, the .org or anything like that. It was supposed, like you said, it was supposed to be something, and then it's just a free for all. Find your name, find a something that makes at least a little bit of sense, and then keep going.
See, I'm kind of torn on it as well, because I'm also of the old school, like, well, if you found it and it's yours, but if someone else has got it, you have to be a little bit more creative. The .app, I get, right, because it's an app, but if like to your point on Clovis Point, like, all right, damn, that sucks. Like, could you do Clovis -point, or could you do like something different to be a little bit like different? But I suppose like there's more and more startups coming out, and eventually like every website is going to probably be taken up in some capacity. So
sure.
Or you could start naming your companies like Elon Musk names his kids.
What is random in a phone book?
No, I don't know, how do you pronounce
his
that?
Like a math equation or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It has like it's like the weird A. It's.
Oh, that's unfortunate for that child.
No, but it doesn't sound stupid. It sounds interesting, but
I mean, it's hard enough to write your name. at that age. I mean, Jesus. And it's like, oh, it's a little a. It's a little a, but it's floating. You know, like how do you explain that?
Ridiculous, but it is.
Obviously, you guys get a lot of followers, so I'm sure Elon Musk is listening, and we love Elon Musk. We're big fans. But
well, you know, if Elon Musk wants to be on in conversation, we'll definitely,
we'll
definitely make time for him.
He's gonna invite us into a rocket ship and just send us to Mars. It's like, don't worry, he's in the ship, and it's 5. It's like, what's going on? Are we going to get launched into space?
I'd get launched into space with Elon Musk.
No, not with him. He's getting rid of us.
Oh, why would he get rid of us? Because we made fun of his kid's name. Everybody has made fun of his kid's name.
Yeah, but this is the straw that broke the camel's back. This right here, this podcast.
You two, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, right. He's like, I don't fucking like these two assholes making fun of my kid's name.
I'm done.
I'm gonna blast him off to space with $1 billion rocket I have.
You know what's interesting about him though, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with him. I mean, I say love-hate relationship. I've never met the guy or spoken to him, but like,
you're not gonna. You don't have correspondence like letters, love letters.
I don't actually text him and like, hey, how are you, man? But what's interesting, like, you know, you talked at the beginning about like you're CEO, but you're wearing multiple different hats. Yeah. Like he talks about like as he builds out like different businesses, he's involved in everything. Like there was a famous email that went around when he was first launching Tesla, and I shared it with my team actually, because it was a guy in Germany that was on the sales team for Tesla, and he would like crushed his number and things like that. And Elon Musk, like he was at one dealership in Germany, right, or like regional salesperson. So it wasn't like he directly reported to Elon Musk. But Elon Musk sent him an email. And was like, "Hey, congratulations on your success. Just so you know, I've been going through the CRM and I've been going through the numbers, and it seems like you're discounting a lot. This is your one and only warning. Like, we do not discount at Tesla." Like, and that just to me was like, wow. Like, first of all, he knows everything that's going on in the company. Like he knows like every single sale. He knows every single thing that's going on, but he also controls things right from the start on. And I was like, that's okay. That's what a CEO does. Essentially, you have to spread yourself very thin and learn a lot of new things.
Yeah, I think that's what's so exciting about it too, is the opportunity to kind of understand. Right, it's almost like it's the intellectual. It's like it's understand enough to have an or an intelligent conversation about a lot of different things, but not be the expert in it, but understand at least what's going on.
Well, I mean, I was going back to Elon Musk. I was listening to a podcast with one of the astronauts that ended up becoming like a consultant for SpaceX, and just how in like literally the same conversation, he's talking about space travel, all this other spacey words, you know, that I don't know, like equations, right? You know,
those
physics.
Aren't words that were invented by Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, spacey words. No, but then also, and then it's like within the same conversation, he's talking about art and culture. Like there's just no like that's basically you're talking about the prototypical like goal of a CEO is to be someone who can literally say, oh yeah, I know a lot about like
this
solar hydrodynamics and magnetic, like hydromagnetic
hydro loops or whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. This is like the man's knowledge base is so spread out, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Knows a lot about a lot of different things.
What's interesting on that point? So when I launched PondLeap, you know, that was my baby, my idea. Jamie's on the sales side of things. Jamie's done enterprise sales, but she's never led a sales team, and she certainly has never done marketing. Like, you know, at some point she's going to be reaching out to you guys and like, hey, what am I doing here? Right? Like we're learning as we're going. And then I bring in Christina, and Christina's background is she's a CPA, she's an accountant, and she's now chief people officer because she really wanted to get into being involved with people and helping them with their career. And so we're all learning as we're going, right? And we're all wearing multiple different hats, but we're all learning as we're going. And what I said to Christina, one of the first pieces of advice was learn some research, like when you're talking to the person. So you don't need to be an expert, But what I used to do was when I was hiring, when I was hiring people and it had on their, their hobbies and interests, they love Bravo TV, just as an example. Much so I fucking hate those shows. Like, I find myself watching Andy Cohen and the Housewives in the background so that I can have a conversation with someone that I'm hiring or someone that I'm talking to. Like, hey, like, saw you're a fan of like Housewives of Atlanta. Man, that fight. Wow. Like, just so I feel like they know I've actually done a little bit of research on them and that I actually want to do it. And maybe I'm on the right path of doing that as a CEO then. Like, if Elon Musk is doing that and learning stuff about random people and stuff all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of people out there or that are like, more in the entertainment area that kind of have that base knowledge on a lot of stuff that can have and then go and pick people's brains about more intelligent or like they're experts in certain fields, but they kind of know the base. Like Joe Rogan's an instant one that comes right to mind where he has these conversations with these people that are just like, geniuses, right? And he himself will say that he's not a genius, but that he's actually listening, that he's able to be curious enough. And I think curiosity is a big part of it as well. Just being curious enough to, do a little bit of research, right? Maybe not on Bravo all the time, but into the person that you have to talk to, that you have to hire, that you have to raise money from, that you have to, human interaction.
Yeah. Putting effort into actually conversing with someone intelligently is something that I think should be a no-brainer. Like, you should literally know a little bit about that person to have an intelligent conversation with than just being like, so you don't want to like who wants to have a conversation with someone who's like, okay, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
how's your day to day?
I mean, we're in a world as well with society, with social media and everything, where you kind of can't not do research. And so I teach salespeople, like, people buy from people. Yeah, like they'll buy the solution and they'll buy the product. But if you're a bad person, or if you come across like, not even a bad person, that's the wrong word, but like, if you come across in a certain way, they're not going to buy from you. And like, a prime example would be, in my last gig, I was hiring a bunch of salespeople, and I always say, like, what questions do you have on an interview process? And one of my pet peeves would be, so tell me a little bit about you. Like, what's your career background? What's your history? And I'm like, dude, you've got LinkedIn, all right? You applied for the job on LinkedIn. Like, how, excuse my language, but how fucking hard is it to like look at my profile for a minute on LinkedIn and realize like, oh, are you okay? You worked here or worked here, and change the question to like, hey, you worked at another startup before. Like, how was that compared to this one? Or, hey, you worked at IBM for 2 years.
It's about having more intelligent questions too.
Yeah,
like the research will help narrow your idea down to the point where you can actually get a real answer from someone.
Right. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of master classes on it too about just like doing a little bit of like doing research, especially. I mean, if you're applying to a company and if you know who you're interviewing with. Like, go and do as much as you possibly can, find out if they like, what sports teams they cheer for, and have some sort of like, some sort of a base to go off of.
Yeah. And Jack, to your point, like you said, Joe Rogan, like I also think of like Bill Maher and like Howard Stern, right? You get a guest on there and the first thing they say is, man, I love your book, or like, man, I loved your movie. I thought it was really good. Now, whether or not they actually saw the movie, like, is a different conversation. They might have just been prepped on it or seen like 5-minute scenes. But the fact of the matter is, they're good at their game and they're good at like interviewing and doing that because they make the person feel comfortable because they've shown that they've done some research.
Yeah, right. And the truth is that the amount of research you have to do to make interesting conversation, like, because honestly, if you're interviewing or you're talking to someone who's the expert in that field, all you have to do is prime it. You just have to, it's just a little light, it's just a prime. So it's, you don't have to be the expert on quantum mechanics to have a good conversation with, let's just go back to Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, he knows
quantum mechanics. But
Elon, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the podcast.
But you don't have to know a lot, but you have to know a little bit, because then he's going to take the reins there. Once you start saying about how in quantum mechanics, there is no probability, there's parallel universes, like that little bit will be like, yes, and this is why we know it's true, and he can go into the
other thing I think
gory
about
details.
The other thing I think about on this, and I'd love your thoughts on this and your experiences as well. Like, people have always said I'm too honest for my own good, like, and they've like I'm brutally blunt at times, which doesn't necessarily help. But like I'll tell the truth. Like, there's no point in lying. So like I might say to someone, like, you go back to that Housewives, which is a bad example. Like I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of Housewives, but I did see that. Yeah. You earn more respect by saying that than like trying to be an expert. Like, hey, like, so Elon, I read your article on quantum mathematics, and like actually, like, I've started building a Hyperloop shuttle in my backyard, and like I'm using this. Like, he's going to look at you and be like, "No, you're lying to me." Like, what?
Right.
Why?
Yeah, right.
And I feel like, certainly from my own experience, I'd love your thoughts on this. Like, my own experience is like, it's better to be like, have some icebreaker, have some research, but be honest. And especially now as a CEO, like I'm messing up every single day, and I want feedback from people. So I'd rather be like, hey, like, I'm not an expert here, I would love your thoughts, than like, yeah, I know everything, I'm CEO. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that Caitlin McAllister from Workbox, she always says is like, you know what? You're not afraid to sit there and go like, what?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, like,
please explain this to me, because like I got to meet a mentor that I hadn't gotten to meet yet, online or in person, and I'm like, I just looked at her and she was talking about, what the hell, it was like she's a lawyer, she was doing law stuff, but for future employees and everything. And I just looked at her, I'm like my eyes are like glazed, because I'm like, that's like fog of war to me. Like, there's just nothing but fog out there. I know eventually.
Yeah.
I got to figure that shit out. But like, so far it's just all fog. And she respected that and laughed, because it's funny, but it's so true. It's like, I'm like, I will talk to you. Right. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think whenever you're starting something new, whether that's like, I'm gonna call back to a previous podcast, a gravel business, or
I never did anything about the gravel business,
or like a new startup, or even if you're starting a new job, there's a lot of times where people think that you have to be the expert in everything, and it's like there's this humility that comes with saying, I don't know. I know a little bit, but I really don't know the nuts and bolts here. You're the expert. Can you teach me some things? And I think that's how bosses should be, and that's how CEOs have to be, and that's how entrepreneurs have to be. Like, I mean, there's going to be there's a bunch of stuff starting even this podcast that we just didn't know. And you do your research and you're like, you know what? Okay, I think I know enough. I have a base to go out and try it. But you know what? We're going to be adaptive, because that's a big thing, and genuine. Being adaptive and being genuine is huge in the business world. And it's a huge thing in life to be adaptive and genuine.
Right.
And I think there's 2 points here, and we can talk about both. So I think the first is like, it is okay to not know everything. And it is okay to learn. And I think people also need to realize that, like, where your expertise is. Like, so I know I'm very good at hiring, not because I've done it for years and years and years, but also because I'm really passionate about it. And I know I'm doing it. To your point, like, Frank, like, I had a similar conversation with one of our advisors the other week, and he happens to be a lawyer, and he's talking about like 1099 laws versus like W-2 laws. And I'm like, you might as well be talking Japanese to me. Like, explain this as if I'm a 5-year-old. Like, that's the level I'm at.
Right.
But you can learn, and you have to learn. And to Jack, your point, that's not just in business. Like, it happens all the time with CEOs. But like, like, I wrote a book. I wrote it as a hobby, and I got to the point of like, okay, well, like, now I've read it, like, now I've written it, like, what do I do next? And I had no idea, like, oh shit, I actually need it edited. Like, okay, like who edits books? Like, what do you do there? Okay, like, now I need to get a cover. Like, how do I do that? Like, like, then you go down this route of like self-publishing versus publishing, and I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I just want to be on the next book. I'm done. Like, I need help. Like, someone help me.
Yeah.
And that's the same with business. Like I constantly find that's the case. And then to your other point, on genuineness, I honestly believe that reputation is such an important thing in business. I think people are more willing to help you. People are more willing to do business with you if you're genuine. And I can only speak from my own experience, but I'm very humble in that when I launched PondLeap, there were former CEOs, former advisors coming out and saying like, hey, let's jump on a call. Like, let me help you. Let's talk about this. And like, there are people that have, and I think it's helped because I've been genuine and being who I am throughout my career, that I've got that people willing to help me.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I hope you can pay it forward, right? You know, I hope you and I do another podcast that like the three of us in like 5 years from now, and we're all like successful entrepreneurs and work boxes like blown up, and we're like the mentors. Like I hope we can go down to the people and be like, be honest with people, like be upfront, like this is what helped us.
People, and you know, this is true in the film business or the entertainment industry. This is true like just in life. I mean, people want to be around people they like, and the truth is too is that what you have to realize is that even like, well, this is also because in the entrepreneur business, in the startup business, in the entertainment business, a lot of ideas have already been tried. So there's a lot of ideas that you know are similar to each other. And what's going to get investment in your movie versus in someone else's movie? It's you. It's who you are. It's what you've done, and it's how you act. And it's how the people investing like you. Like if they hate you, they won't invest in you. They'll invest in the 7 other companies that are doing, probably trying to do the exact same thing you're trying to do. You know, it's about who you are, and it's about how you can attract your ensemble and your network.
Yeah, well, I mean the Hollywood story is a great example, right? Because I've heard, like, I don't know anything about Hollywood. Like, I've been there once and took a picture of the sign, but like, like I don't know anything about the industry. But I've heard, like, you obviously read, like, there's Hollywood blacklists where like studios refuse to work with certain actors, and what my understanding is, it's not just because they're a pain in the backside and they're like very demanding or that, but it's their reputation as well. Mm. So like if you put a certain actor on a poster or on a film, are you going to get less people watching it because that person has a bad reputation in the industry? Like the one that jumps to mind was Mel Gibson for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like disappeared, right? Like
yeah.
And I'm guaranteeing it's because the studios were like, yeah, we don't want to put our name on there because people won't even watch a movie with him. Yeah, and so like, there's such a thing about reputation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know,
and Mel, if you're listening, I love Braveheart and like great film, and like these guys will gladly interview you any day.
Yeah, sure. Come on, Mel.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, he's gonna start his podcast circuit with our podcast.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's gonna revitalize his career.
Yeah, right.
We were just talking about Kevin Costner yesterday.
Oh yeah,
and about how long it took him to get back into the limelight.
Yeah,
from Waterworld, which was just a total garbage
disaster movie.
Yeah, and then how now in Yellowstone he's starting to redo his image. Yeah,
someone
but how long that took to be able to do. Yeah, there's a cautionary tale for anybody out there, entrepreneur, filmmaker.
Well, I mean, you know, it's the same thing with I think George Clooney got that one when he signed on for Batman. He was like, after that, he was like, always read the script.
Always read the script.
Always read the script. Don't sign on just because you're being Batman. Read the script. Is there nipples in this suit? There are nipples outside this suit. Should I do this?
Well, that's an interesting thing though on entrepreneurs, because I don't think we have the same time. Like in Hollywood, right? Like you're an actor, like you break out, like Kevin Costner, Prince of Thieves, like great movies. Waterworld. I didn't even think Waterworld was that bad, but like at the time it was like such an expensive movie, right? Like, and it was such a flop. And he's a great example of bouncing back, but it's taken him 10 years. Like, do entrepreneurs have that same time? Like, if PondLeap suddenly gets a very bad reputation for something, like, I'm done. Like, I don't think I can launch a new business again. And mentally, I'm not ever going to launch another business again. This is it, by the way. But like,
Well, what if PondLeap's successful and you need PondLeap 2.0, you know?
Right.
Or
But
not,
on the- yeah, on the-
what do British people call the Pacific Ocean?
What do you mean? The
Well,
Pacific Ocean, right?
No,
Or
right, but
we
I mean,
call Australia,
the Atlantic
like-
Ocean is called across the pond. So
yeah, right. Oh, okay.
is it the slightly bigger pond? Is it the lake?
It's
lake?
just another pond. Yeah.
Another pond.
We call the Australian criminals
Another
like,
PondLeap.
Another
Yeah.
PondLeap.
There you go.
And that's how you get American companies into Asia.
Yeah, there you go.
right.
That's the whole idea there.
Well, that's actually the goal of PondLeap, right? The goal originally is like European companies coming over to America. We've just started this conversation about like actually there's American companies that want to go to Europe.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like taking our recipe and using it there. And again, learning legally, like there's different rules in England and Europe and everything else. But we're also just starting to target Australian companies. And so the goal is hopefully we can leap over multiple ponds if this company makes it in the next 5 years. And to your point, if PondLeap's really successful, right, I'm sure, like Hollywood, I'm just going to get offers like, hey, hey, come run our sales team, come run our company. Like, that's if you make it successful, you get the offers. Like Jared Leto is a prime example, another Hollywood, right, where like he disappeared for a while, it was rock band all over the world or whatever it was. He did Dallas Buyers Club and he did a couple of other movies. And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, now I remember why he's an awesome actor." And now I'm sure he gets offers every single day.
Yeah.
But if you do it badly, right? I think America loves the failure story, but not everyone does. Like, I don't think like you're going to get another. I'm not going to get another CEO gig if I mess up on PondLeap. But like, if I mess up because the company failed, like because we didn't do enough sales or like something didn't work, okay. But if we mess up because my reputation was I came on a podcast and started bashing Elon Musk and that's it, like then I'm like, am I out? Like, do I have to start looking at another career at that point? Like, how does that work even?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, maybe not looking into aerospace, but
well, no, I mean, I think that I mean, the real thing about entrepreneurs, and I mean, I was just watching something about like, because obviously there's a little election in the news, but I was watching like how previous presidents like Bill Clinton, George Bush, even Barack Obama, they were like defined by those failures in smaller levels, at which eventually propelled them to the highest office in the land. And I'm thinking like the whole lifespan of an entrepreneur is almost constant failure until something's successful. So I think that if Quantum Leap, which is like you and Elon Musk coming up together, so it's like quantum computers. Yeah, so Quantum Leap.
Data flying across the whole world in the matter of seconds.
Yeah, Quantum Leap about sales data. Data. Okay. No, but if PondLeap does, let's say, it isn't as successful or it fails, I don't think that makes you unapproachable to start another company. I think that you're going to take a lot of that experience and hopefully make your next company better.
Well, so actually, I don't know whether you guys know this about me, but I do a lot of sales training, partly because I love doing it, but like I do like lots of different training courses for different people. One of the trainings I do is there's a tiny book called Go for No, and it's an amazing business book which I'll send you a copy of. It's like that long, so you don't have to like actually read it, right? But it talks about the idea of like everyone fails, but you learn from your mistakes. And there's numerous people in history, like like you go talk about the presidents, like Lincoln failed as a businessman. Failed to get voted in like I think 10 times before he finally got voted in as like a governor and then became arguably one of the greatest presidents of America. So there's definitely, I think like as an entrepreneur, if we fail because we failed because it wasn't meant to be or we've made mistakes, that definitely you can bounce back and you can actually be stronger for it. And actually my favorite story ever I don't know. Have you guys heard the story of the guy that invented the airbag?
No.
So the guy that invented the airbag, right, came up with this idea. Like, wow, genius! Like, it's going to save people's lives. He went to all the car makers for 10 years, and he was pitching to all of these car makers, like, hey, like, this is going to save people's lives. Like, you need these in your cars. And all of them were like, no, sorry, not interested. So then he decided to go to Congress, and he lobbied for 20 more years. And I mean, I don't think he did this on his own. Like, I think he was obviously doing a side job or doing other things. But like, for 20 years, he was lobbying about how the importance of this will save people's lives. It will change the way we drive. And finally, they passed a bill that the airbag should be installed in the cars. And then he got a deal for 120 million with the car dealers after 30 years. So you could argue that he made 4 million a year, or you could say that like it took him 30 years to get to 120 million. But like the amount of times he failed and went through like rejection to get there is just incredible.
Well, you know, that story also talks about how even a good idea fucking can't get done quickly, you know? So it's like something that will literally, like something that I can't imagine driving a car without seatbelts, without airbags.
Right.
And for that to be like, no, we're not going to do it. It takes him 30 years to get it to work. It's humbling to say the least. Yeah.
The other thing that's entrepreneurs need to think about with that though is as well as like, okay, it's okay to fail. Like we learn from failures, we can bounce back. And by the way, if you're starting a business, probably my one piece of advice is you need to have thick skin and you need to like learn to be like humble, like we were talking about earlier. But the other thing is I don't want to say luck because I don't believe necessarily, but there is an element of luck in the world, right?
Sure.
Like they were like, I don't know whether you guys watch Shark Tank or in England it's called Dragon's Den. It's the same thing where they go and pitch. Right. But there was like literally probably the worst idea I've ever seen in my life was this business where you get a potato and you can write a message on a marker on a potato and then they ship it to someone. And so that message could be like, hey, congratulations on the new job. And you've got a potato. Or it could be like, hey, you're a Muppet. And you get a potato. And I'm like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. And it got investment. And I can't remember whether it was Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. But I was like, what the hell? Like, how did that even get investment? And then there's like cool ideas that don't get investment and cool businesses that fail. And I'm not saying that PondLeap is a cool one, but like if we fail, like there's got to be an element of bad luck as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we can kind of pivot a little bit into talking a little bit more about PondLeap because we've talked for about 45 minutes about everything else underneath the sun except for what actually PondLeap does. I'm
obviously very good at pitching sales, right?
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, so it would be an element of bad luck because there are so many entrepreneurs and so many businesses, like you said, that are trying to bridge or fight against either not being able to afford full-time salespeople or not being able to afford to send salespeople and open up offices around the world, but are very global, right? That some businesses are instantly global, and there's no way for them to hire somebody or open up an office in Tokyo because it's just not practical to do so. And yet they could be doing or have opportunity to do business everywhere. And so that's where PondLeap kind of comes in. And that's why it would be bad luck because I don't see how the only way I could see this not working is if there's like such a big negative on freelance salesmen. But I did want to touch on the fact that, you know, in marketing, people are trying to automate marketing to increase their sales, which is totally just dumb ass backwards. It's so bad because you need, like you said, people buy from people.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, there's a puppy.
Yeah, sorry, I have two dogs. You get in the world of 2020 where you just roll your eyes when the dog or a 3-year-old walks in now. So, but yeah, you were saying like in marketing, and people buy from people.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the whole thing. So when these marketing or email campaigns or advertising guarantees, you know, return on investment, how much money they can make off sales, it's like, okay, But people buy from people, right?
Yep.
And some of that stuff needs to have those sales. And though you can be doing business in Tokyo from Chicago, the opportunity to be able to have a freelance salesman that's selling your stuff out in Tokyo, that knows the people, that knows the area, that knows the industry,
markets.
right, is so much stronger than sending out
a bunch
email
of blanket emails
Right.
to
Right.
people in Tokyo.
Right.
Yeah. So let me talk about the PondLeap a little bit deeper in terms of the problems we're solving and
Sure.
and the kind of perception we get as well, because I think that answers your questions here. So the first one is, right, when I started again 2004, before LinkedIn, I quit university, moved back into my parents, hated it, was working in a movie theater, got rejected by every bank in London possible. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing? And I applied for this startup sales job. And they said to me, like, what do you know about sales? Nothing. What do you know about technology? Absolutely nothing. And they were like, well, why should we hire you? And I'm like, because I work harder than anyone at my age. Like, and that, bold statement, but it was true. And I worked selling into America. So I would work till midnight and I would work till 2 a.m. because of the time zone, selling into America. And it worked for us. But for every one company that has someone like me that's mad enough to work till midnight, there's 10 companies where their people they want a life. They want to work 9 till 5 or whatever it is. They don't want to work, late night shifts.
Right.
And so you could solve the problem of selling into America or selling internationally with a mad salesperson, but that's very rare. So the second thing is like, well, okay, we're going to expand into America. We've got some traction. We've got some interest. We're going to expand into America. But then, I'll just use America as an example, but every country in the world has different visas, different applications, different processes. And to your point, like, I couldn't sell in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the language. I couldn't do it. Don't know the culture. And in America, you have to if they were like, okay, Jack, you're our top salesman in London. You're going to open up the Chicago office. You don't know anything about Chicago necessarily. You don't know how to apply for a visa, which takes 6 months and could cost you $50,000. You certainly don't know anything about American healthcare benefits or anything that goes on there. And so you're now suddenly put on this immense pressure to like be a foreigner selling into a new country. So it doesn't really work. So the third option is, well, to your point, like, let's hire a local person, but let's hire them full time. And the problem with that is, and I've seen this from my own experience through the years, is you can do all the checks and balances to hire someone full time and they still not be the right person. Or you talk about luck. Let's say you're expanding into America, or let's say like Clovis Point is expanding into the UK, right? Or QuidPro is expanding into the UK. You can go and hire a UK person. You can think they're the best person in the world, but QuidPro might not even be a solution that takes off in the UK. No one likes it for some reason. And so now you're stuck with like, you're paying full-time benefits, you're paying this full-time person, and you kind of like have this generosity, like, well, let's give them a few more months. And then when you get rid of them, like, you're now 6 months behind your target. So that's where the freelancer comes in. Our goal is to answer your question about like, well, people perceive freelancers in one way. We would love to have a conversation with, like, I was talking to a UK company yesterday. Like, I would love for us to build out the recipe, get America working with our freelancers, and they hire the freelancers from us full time. So I would love that story to happen where we've actually solved that problem and we've then played into the part of the bigger ecosystem where someone's actually got a full-time job. They're actually building out their career. So that's what we solve on the international space. The same problems are really the case with the startups. The problem with the startups is you might have a budget for one salesperson, right? And that one, and you set aside that one salesperson. As a startup, you have to sell. Otherwise, you're going to have, problems all the way through the business. Sure. Like if you're not selling your solution, you're not selling. So you're hiring this one salesperson, And whether or not that's a junior salesperson, they're booking meetings for the CEO or the founder, or whether or not they're, doing the whole sales cycle, that they're that one person. Most people that get hired are salespeople, right? If you think about sports a little bit, you could hire Tom Brady, but he's not Bill Belichick, right? He doesn't have the tactics or the strategy or what works or doesn't work. And to the point earlier, like, he doesn't know how to evaluate when to fail, when to change things. Mm-hmm. And then that salesperson is only limited on what they can do. And there's immense pressure on them. And if that salesperson fails after 6 months, again, for numerous reasons, you're back to square one, if not behind. So where we come in is we say, okay, we try and build a pond, as cheesy as that might sound, right? So like we say, for the same price as one full-time person, we'll do an evaluation and we'll tell you, based on our experience, what we think the best blueprint will be. Not going to guarantee you that you're going to generate $1 million a month all of a sudden, but we're going to build the best map we think is right for you. Mm. Then we're going to put the best freelancers that we think are right for you into it to build it. We're going to train them. We're going to coach them. We're going to do, we've got video training on our portal now. We've got like one-on-one coaching, and we're going to send you a weekly report card, and we're going to check in with you every month. So we're doing everything we can to mitigate the risk. Now, if after 3 months, that salesperson, that tactic isn't working, and we've had a couple of clients where I've said to them, like, you could keep paying us. Like, we're not going to not take your money, but this isn't working. Like, this tactic isn't working. And actually, you're better to pull the plug and let's go back to the drawing board than to continue down that route. Sure. And you don't have that option as a startup when you're doing full time. So that's what we're doing. And that was a long answer, but I just fire shot a lot of information at you. So
but that totally makes a ton of sense. And I think that's what, there's a definite need for that.
Yeah, and I think, I don't mean to cut you off there, Frank, but I did.
But he did.
But I think that goes back to the one thing that we were talking about, which is a great thing for entrepreneurs. You have to be, and especially CEOs, you have to be adaptable. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's like, this is building in the option to adapt and reassess.
Yes.
As opposed to committing to 6 months to a guy or a saleswoman who might have been the best on paper, but just not working out in the long term. And then before you're behind the 8 ball, you can then say, hey, you know what, let's switch this up. Let's switch the strategy up.
Yeah, there's a famous military quote. It's like, the best plans are the ones that change, or something like that, or allow for change.
Or who was it Mike Tyson that said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face?
I love that one.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, it's that whole aspect of, if you can hire a full-time salesman, it may not work out. It might work out brilliantly. It could, but likelihood is that you're going to have to reassess, because once again, startups are changing all the time. And the thing that you're selling, the solution, and the people you're selling to, when you hire that full-time salesman, might pivot dramatically from that point until 3 months later. Then all of a sudden it's like, yes, we're no longer going for small businesses. We're selling to, Amazon solely. Do you have any contacts at Amazon? It's like, no. It's like, and then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and all of this is based on like real experience. So like PondLeap has pivoted so much in the first 150 days or whatever we're in. Like, we started out with like one model on pricing, and we've just completely 360'd it. Like, the idea of startups wasn't even around when we built the business. Like, you have to be able to pivot. So we drink our own champagne on that. We actually hire freelancers to sell for us. Small world, Kelly's boyfriend, Mike, is selling for PondLeap.
Oh, there you go.
It would kind of complete the loop there. But the other thing is, I've lived through experiences as well. So like, one prime example in my career was I got headhunted for a role, and it was like, build out the American sales team. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like, this is a cool idea. And I went in there and I was interviewed, and I thought I got on really well with them. And I thought I had a very clear vision. I spent 9 months in that job, and I knew I was struggling. but they knew I was struggling, and we had different ideas on tactics. We did it, you know, I don't blame anyone, but after 9 months, I lost my job. I got fired because I hadn't delivered the results. They're now back at least 9 months on what they call a bad hire. I've, in my opinion, wasted 9 months of my career, and much though I learned a lot from it, you know, it failed. And it goes back to the point on like failure. Like, and then the cool thing to me about PondLeap, and I never want to, money is great, right? I love money. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm sitting in a house right now in the burbs, and, you know, dreaming of like one day making enough money to go back home to England once COVID's over. But for me, the cool thing about the ecosystem that we're building with PondLeap is on our freelance network now, we've got people that are retired, and they're like, I don't want to do another job full time, but I love the idea that I can actually still keep my toes in the water. Yeah. Like, we've got students that are like, hey, like, we're struggling to get a job right now. We need experience. We've got parents that are, you know, because of COVID, they've suddenly been forced to be teachers and parenting a lot more, but they don't want to like lose their skills. Sure. And we've got people that have got full-time jobs, but are like, hey, like, I could actually make some extra money here. Like, I could actually do some sales here because no one actually works 9 to 5 anymore. And so we're building that. And that to me is really cool, because that ecosystem is like, well, that parent can now pay her rent. And that startup is now getting sales, or they're now getting their, you know, to your point, they're now getting their brand out there, right? Even if they're sending emails out and they're not getting any sales, it's better than nothing. Mm-hmm. And if we can build some kind of small ecosystem there, that would be my goal. Like,
yeah. And then on top of that too, so I was just thinking about how, you know, there are a lot of freelance websites out there like Fiverr or anything else like that, but it's better than hiring somebody through there, because you guys do the kind of the strategy behind it as well. It's not, you're not throwing, it's not, you know, you're not talking to, you know, John from Arizona who you're going to hire at, you know, whatever an hour to try to sell this thing for you. And then when that doesn't, it's because it would be the same problem. It might cost you a little less, but it'd be the same problem.
You talk about pivot, right? That, like, the original idea was to build like an Upwork or a Fiverr, right? And like, hey, we've got this sales gig and you can do it. And like, you can pitch your own hourly rate, right? Yeah. But the first thing we found with that is that the junior salespeople, like, how do you pitch yourself? Like, well, I'm 25 an hour to make phone calls versus I'm 20 an hour to make phone calls. Like, I'm 50 an hour. Like by default, the mind is going to go with the middle option. Yeah. And like, how do you price yourself? That's difficult. The second problem we came up against was your exact point, was there are so many companies, like, you could hire a salesperson. Yeah. But it's like one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And so we went back to the drawing board and said, all right, well, how do we do it that we do as much as we can, like, without, it's right back to the earlier conversation. We're not experts. Like, I'm not the best sales trainer in Chicago. I'm good, but I'm not the best. Yeah. Right. I'm not the best I'm not one of these people on LinkedIn that has, I'm an ex-Uber. I was one of the first startups here. I got this company acquired. Like, no, I've been in startups for 15 years, but I'm not the expert. But I've got enough knowledge and enough on my network to say we can do something. We can build out a strategy and help both sides of the equation. And then the final thing that we pivoted on was our first projects were like, okay, well, you need a junior salesperson to book meetings for you, and we're gonna give you one of them for 20 hours a week, and which is the traditional freelance model. And the problem with that was twofold. Was one, the client started looking at like, well, I think they can do more than this in 20 hours. I think that they can do more than this. And so then I'm constantly talking to the customer about like, well, what's your expectations? And then the freelancer clocks out at the 20 hours. Like, they're done. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing another thing. No. And that doesn't work. Right? Like, so our model now is a flat fee. So a startup pays us a flat fee, which is $4,000 a month. And we then go to our network and we say, like, we'll do the evaluation and we'll say, hey, we've got a junior sales gig. It's sending emails, it's booking appointments. We're going to pay you $1,000 a month. And if you're in, you're interested. If you're not, you're not. And that way we're setting up everyone on a much simpler term. So whether or not that works, I don't know. But
right. Well, that sounds simpler. I mean, that's my big thing. Like with all of the things at Workbox, when the guys from, who are they? Anyways, it doesn't matter. I don't even know if I can mention their names because, Mastermind's all very private and everything. But they're talking about how it was a percentage at first that they were charging. Right. And then they shifted to a solid number. And I'm like, I love solid numbers. And with Quid Quo, we were going to do one of the options that was floated was like, we'll do a percentage of the total amount of the deal. I'm like, I do not want somebody to pay $17.47 because that's how much that came out 10% of the deal or whatever. Right. I'm like, that is so complicated. I want it to be like, I know how much I'm paying for this. It's always the same. I adjust the value of it because I didn't want people to go in there and be like, this deal is huge.
Yeah.
Geez, it's going to be like $500 to make this deal work through this app. It's like, let's just do it through the app and then not sign it and then go outside of it and do,
Yeah.
So
see, what I love about your business, sorry to cut you off, but what I love about it is, again, it's the simplicity. Like, everyone has their strengths. Everyone knows something. They're an expert in certain things. Good people in the world will help other people out. Like, by default, we do. And so I think it's like, I would absolutely be a customer on Quid Pro, like where it would be like, hey, if I can offer out my sales strategy experience or my sales recruiting experience or whatever it might be, my English Premier League experience or like whatever it might be, I'll gladly do that at a flat fee because I'll gladly do that. And in exchange, like if someone wants to give me like legal advice, on a contract, like I just think that works so much better. I think it's just such a genius idea that people, like particularly startups, need.
Yeah.
I do think you guys are onto something.
Yeah. We're looking forward to getting it out, an MVP out, so then people can start to see it. Because I know people get the general idea, and then like when we were talking to Greg during the mastermind, Greg's like, "Is it a marketplace?" I'm like, "No, it's not a marketplace. I hate marketplaces." Like that's the whole Fiverr aspect of like, I hate that. I hate when people have to go like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna bid for something." I'm like, bids just are garbage because first of all, and I can go on a little bit of a rant here, but Smart Shoot does this for filmmakers or for video people, and they're like, "All right, well, post up your requirements." And you kind of touched on this too. Customers don't know what the fuck they need. They have no idea, right? And so when they would put something up like, we need a 30-second commercial, they would put out random ass stipulations. Like there was like, it needs to be shot in 4K. It needs to have excellent sound because they don't know how to put excellent sound in technical terms. They know 4K because everybody talks about 4K, which by the way, most TV screens can't display in 4K. So what are you wasting your time? YouTube plays everything back at 720p at its highest quality. So what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on, think about this for a second. Anyway, so it has to be in 4K, excellent sound.
We need we need like 3 cameras.
3 cameras. I love that. They don't understand how anything works. And then they put a bid of like, and we're willing to spend $500. I'm like, whoa, hold the phone. Yeah, right. 500 big ones, huh?
And then they say like final runtime needs to be 10 minutes, and you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
And so then you try to bid, and then you try to explain in it, and you're like, listen, what you're asking for is going to cost, like our day rate's $1,500, right? So it's like you're looking at $1,500 and then $50 for editing per hour. Like this is the range that you're looking for, right? Yeah. And you'll never hear anything back, and you have no idea, why you didn't get the bid, right? Yeah. Because we were just going to be like, I'm not even going to play along with this game. I'm not even talking to you. But it's that bidding on things or going out and hiring somebody that you have no expertise on. It's so frustrating that's the way that things are.
People don't appreciate value. Like, and we could talk about this for hours and hours. Like, I went on Upwork a few weeks ago, and it was like all these salespeople, and it's like, and we're willing to do 100% commission, and I'm like, dude, like, we're asking them to do like a full-time job selling something that doesn't have a brand right now, 100% commission. Like, you've got to have some skin in the game. And they're like, we're getting people that are applying, we're getting people doing it. I'm like, all right, then go go have those people. But like, you're devaluing what I've spent 15 years doing. You're devaluing the person, and you're putting immense pressure on someone for like ridiculous. Like, you're the expert. Like, you, by the way, what you were talking about on like YouTube versus 4K. You know, you spoke earlier about Japanese. Like, that was what I was just like, at some point, I'm going to need a video. I know I'm calling these guys up. Like, that's a level of knowledge, but you're the experts, right? Now, I like, what I want to do is, like, let's say a year from now, I want to get a commercial out on PondLeap. I'm going to go to you guys and I'm going to say, hey, like, I don't know what I'm doing,
right?
But I have to tell you, like, I looked at how much it costs to put a commercial out on the Super Bowl, and my budget is like way less. Like, this is where I'm at. Like, what can I get out of it? And you might say you ain't getting nothing, or you might say, hey, like, you can get a video, but like, it isn't going to win any awards. Or you might say, actually, your budget's like perfect. Like, you can do this.
Yeah. Well, more likely what we would say is like, you know what, we could shoot a video for that, but let's talk to, you know, the marketing guy that we know, and he can push that further, and then we could start to develop the strategy of it.
Yeah. And that's where that's where I think Quid Pro comes in really cool, is like, we could do that, but we're not the experts. But actually, we know people on Quid Pro that like will do this for this price for you. And it's like, okay, well, wow, that's cool. Like, now we're helping that ecosystem out. And then, you know, I think the other thing as well is, you think about like what we can and can't do. Like, I hate people that it goes back to the earlier point. I hate people that promise the world and then don't deliver. Like, I would much rather like, hey, like, we're not going to do this video for you. Like, all right, great. Like, thanks so much, guys. I'm still going to drink with you. Like,
right. Because that's the last thing, and we've experienced this plenty of times where people will like, oh, we need a video, because that's what they're hearing. They're hearing that they need video, right, to market themselves. Like, video's what we need. And it's like, well, what you really need, right? And this could go back to, like, you hear that you need a salesperson, But what you really need is you need that strategy around it to be able to create content consistently. That's what you need.
One-off content, one-off salesman, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't. Because it's all relationships. Right. Think about, like, with your video content or any content, any marketing, any advertising, any branding, is a conversation, a constant relationship with the audience that's choosing to pay attention to you, right? And that's the same thing with a salesman. It's like, I'm going to go back if I need, you know, if I'm going to constantly be paying $4,000 to PondLeap, and I get to talk to James. I don't have to talk to a salesman. Right? I get to talk to the VP of PondLeap.
Yeah, right. the executive VP.
Right. You know,
founder.
But I'm going to keep on coming back, and I'm talking to you, and that's that relationship that's going to continue to build, right? And that's the important aspect of it. And No, exactly.
I mean, and I do love. This is what I love about Workbots, right? Like, the Workbots connected us together,
right?
But I love these type of conversations. Like, I don't know whether you like, I see the recording button. I don't know whether you're going to publish this or not. Like, I'm certainly not looking like for brand reputation or like a male modeling career from this. Like, I'm like, I love the fact that I'm talking to two founders about business problems and we're chatting it through, right? I love that Workbots has given us this opportunity where we can actually like brainstorm each other. Like, I've got a good friend, he's actually a client of mine, and he's a good friend now in Chicago, and he was just having a down day. He's a founder, he's a startup, and he was just like, man, this just sucks. Like, I just want to quit. And I'm like, dude, like, let's just jump on a call, let's text, let's talk it through. Like, we're all in this crazy world together. Let's help each other out and let's support each other. And that's what I think is great about the fact that Workbots has given us this opportunity. And that's what I think that you're doing a great job with your podcast, is like you're showing that like we're all human beings at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And all going through the same stuff. And I love the parallels between the startup world and the creative world. It's all the same stuff.
It's all
the same stuff.
Yeah, right.
You can listen to one of the podcasts with one of the producers that are actually making stuff that people are actually seeing, right? Not just, YouTube, like, we put this is going to be on YouTube and however many people see this. Maybe, James, you're the one that's going to break through and we're going to get 100,000 people
I mean, I do have like the Matthew McConaughey body and the English accent, so I am like the perfect.
Yeah, right.
And we did talk about Elon Musk, but like it's a hit there, right there.
There we go. Hashtag Elon Musk. Hashtag Matthew McConaughey.
No, hashtag English Matthew McConaughey.
There you go. Yeah. So, James, we usually end off with a little bit of words of wisdom. Anything that we spoke about in the conversation that you think. We kind of already mentioned Workbox, and I already know I'm going to do that segment and make sure that they post it on their stuff too. Do a little three-way promotion. PondLeap,
maybe
Workbox,
we get a
and
sponsorship.
the podcast. Right.
All right. I mean, Workbox is great. I think like we touched on a lot of things here. Like, I think the biggest, anyone that views or listens to this, that's an entrepreneur, is we're all in this together, right? Like, it's okay to fail. We all fail. We all make mistakes. I would take so much pride, and I would be probably the first people to text you guys once you got like a round of funding or you got a big customer, like. And I think like the words of wisdom I would say to anyone that listens to this, particularly if you're an entrepreneur or a wantrepreneur, is like you're not alone. We're doing this together, and like you're gonna fail and learn from other people, and like use the network and use the community around you to learn. I'm sure I speak for you guys. Where like if there's a kid at a college right now that's wanting to start a business and they're like happen to listen to this because we tagged Elon Musk, like. I'm sure that they want to, if they reached out to you, you would jump on a call and give them advice. I'm sure that I would do the same. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually at 1:00, I have a call with a kid that was a freshman at Loyola who came to a founders networking event. Was not supposed to be there because he's 18 years old, right? At a bar. I won't mention the bar name so they don't get fined. But and I looked at him, I'm like, first of all, I'm the only person that knows that you're not 21. Let's get that straight. Okay. Number two, I'm like, you are fucking killing it right now. And I'm so looking forward. He's like, he had this idea and he's like, he's been really busy with it and everything. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to jump on this call to hear the progress that he's made. And hopefully, he's not spending $45,000 to get a business degree that, to be frank, nobody's going to care if you're the CEO of a company of where you got your business degree from. So hopefully
you could be a VP at PondLeap,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right, exactly. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun, James. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys, and like honestly, good luck with everything. Like I'm a big fan of everything you're doing. I like people buy from people, right? I think you guys are doing great stuff. I like you guys a lot, and
thank you.
Sounds good. If ever you want to like shoot the shit, pick ideas or whatever it is, like we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I will see you
around.
I
want to be invited. I want to be invited on the cocktail show as well. By the way.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, you know what? Comment a cocktail name, and so we have more things to create.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because you posted.
I came up with Snake White and Black. That got I can tell you horror stories about that drink, but it was basically half lager, half cider, blackcurrant on top, and you would drink because it was like the equivalent of $1 for beer, $1 for cider. So it's $2. Like we would drink 10 of them and just be, let's say, jolly. That's the politest possible word. That was the best cocktail I ever had. But I'll think of more creative ones for you.
Yeah. You just got to come up with the names.
Come up with the name, and then a couple of things, like a couple
some
of
things that have to be in it.
Yeah. So like
maybe it's to create the PondLeap.
Yeah,
or the English Matthew McConaughey, maybe.
Yeah, right there you go, right there.
I like PondLeap and the English Matthew McConaughey. What?
I don't know what that's gonna be, but that sounds. It could be terrible or amazing.
I'm literally blocking my calendar this afternoon now to like create these two cocktails.
A half an hour of just.
English Matthew McConaughey.
What would possibly be? I don't know. I just think it'd have to have a pickled egg. Does that make any sense? No.
What's that? It'd have to.
Love it.
It has to have tea. What's that?
Okay, has to have tea. Okay.
Has to have tea. But what's that bourbon that
tea and whiskey?
Tea and whiskey.
Right.
It's just a cold hot toddy.
An English man.
Love it.
Or room temperature, right? Because you guys drink beer room temperature, or is that
Yeah,
just
right,
some
right,
sort
yeah.
of a
Yeah,
weird?
right.
Yeah, there
Do
you
you,
go.
do, you
big
have to,
room
do you actually have to test the cocktail before I pass it over? Like, do I have to go in the kitchen this afternoon and create
No,
these
you could
ideas?
just. Well, see, you could just say the stipulations, and then we have to try to balance it and make it work. I
Right.
mean, you could try it, and trust me, after 3 times, you're gonna be like, I hate this. I never want to drink another cocktail again. Because we were just working.
I'm honestly going to do a team building exercise with you guys where we're going to come up with the best cocktail and send them to you, because we're on Workbots and you're on Workbots. So I'm going to have Christina, Jamie, and our sales guy. Like, that's going to be our team building exercise. That's our
There you go.
Christmas party.